Hello, welcome to this week's Exam Revision Saturday session with Amy on Junior Cycle Home Economics. Today we'll be looking at the family and looking at exam questions. Follow us on our social media, so we're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course our YouTube channel. Check out Junior Cycle Home Ec Exam Revision to see previous videos. Today's plan, we'll be looking at the family part 1. We'll then be looking at exam questions to do that session, followed by the second part of the family and then exam questions pertaining to that session as well. The family part 1, all of the PowerPoints and questions can be found on the Exam Revision website under the Junior Cycle Home Economics section under Strand 2. The family 1, our learning intentions include defining the family, analysing the 4 different types of families, explaining the meaning of roles and responsibilities. So what do you know about families? Have a think about it. Here is a picture to kind of get you thinking of modern family. Okay, so the family, you need to be able to define it. So the family is a group of people related to each other by blood, marriage or adoption. You must say related by blood, marriage or adoption. If you leave out either blood or your marriage or adoption, you will not get full marks. The marking scheme is very specific. The family is the core unit of society. So in the family, the children develop values and skills which helps them become more connected members of society and, more importantly, responsible members of society. So if you're asked for a definition, you would write down what is underlined there in bold. So there are 4 different types of family structures. You need to be able to state, explain and give examples. I use the acronym of NEBL to help students remember. So we have N for nuclear, E for extended, B for blended and L for other parent or lone parent. So you can either call it other parent, one parent or lone parent. So the nuclear family, if you have a look at this picture, you can see a mum, a dad and 2 kids. Therefore, the definition for a nuclear family is a family which is made up of parents and their child or children. And that is the definition for a nuclear family. So we've looked at nuclear, now we're going to go to NEBL, so that's extended. Here's the Kardashians. So what we think of parents, children and other relatives such as grandparents, aunts, uncles and cousins. So hundreds of years ago in previous generations, extended families are really popular. So if you think of to call the midwife, it's the whole family is living, the whole generation of family is living under the same roof, whereas that isn't as popular now as it used to be. So we've looked at nuclear, extended, and now we are going on to blended. So here's an example of Kamala Harris. So she married her husband, who then had 2 children from previous relationship. Okay, so now she is their stepmother. So a blended family is when partners in a relationship have children from previous relationships and then they may have more children together. So you're thinking of step parents, step brothers and step sisters. So that is your blended family. Now we're going on to lone parent, which is also known as single parent. So if you think of Gilmore Girls, there's the mum and then there's the girl. So this consists of mother or father and children. So women host the most one-parented families, and that's just the statistics within Ireland. Now it is as well throughout the world, but in Ireland it'd be more common to have a mum and a child rather than just a dad and a child. Now that's not to say it doesn't happen. And it is becoming more popular due to divorce and as well in certain cases death as well. So you need to be able to name and explain nuclear, extended, blended and lone parent families. So there are factors or certain considerations which influence our families' lives. So social influences. So if we think of our parents, how involved they are and what their parents have taught them, you're thinking of marriage. So in general, there is it is becoming less common to get married than it would have been hundreds of years ago. People are having kids and then getting married, which would not have been socially acceptable 60 odd years ago. And there is higher increased rates of divorce. There is also less children being born. Cultural influences, so your family background will affect your type of family. So depending on whether you are from a working class family or you're from a better off family, or whether you have a stay-at-home parent, your race and religion will also affect your family life. Local traditions, the social media, and peer pressure. Finally, our third factor is economic influences. Okay, due to the recent inflation, so the increase in the cost of food and energy, it means that people are struggling more than before, and therefore they may not be able to afford to have as many kids. There's also increased unemployment, especially after COVID, and there may be more people on social welfare payments due to the fact that they're unemployed. Childcare and education in Ireland, we've one of the most expensive in the world at third level institutions. The fees, even though we do offer free schooling, parents still have to pay for uniforms and books, which is also contributing to factors and how many children they're having. So if you're asked about factors influencing family life, you would state either of those three and you would explain them in full detail and full sentences. So the functions of the family. So the function means what it does. So there are three key functions. You need to be able to state each and explain each of them with full sentences. So physical function, shelter. So the family provides you with a home, somewhere where you live and you're safe and you will not get wet or too hot or too cold. They provide clothing, so they provide you with the clothes that you're going to wear. They provide you with food, so nourishment. Without nourishment, you are not going to thrive and live. They protect you from danger, whether that's from physical danger, like for example storms, or it's from bullying, all types of different dangers. Our second function is emotional function. So they allow you a safe place to express your views and opinions. You're more likely to say what you're thinking in your mind when you're home near your family, because these are the people that you know the best in your life, people that you have been around the most. It provides you with a safe environment to grow. Okay, so it allows you to express your opinions and say, no, I don't like this. Provides you with love and understanding. So the family is the first place where you learn about love and understanding. Social needs is your third function. So it provides personal relationships with other family members. So you see how your parents interact, and therefore that will then influence your how you interact with other male and female members in society. So social skills, you will learn about what is socially acceptable. For example, your please and your thank you, and what types of clothing you should wear in certain situations, and how to deal with certain situations. You will learn to be an effective communicator, like how to go up to a cafe and say, I would like a hot chocolate, or how to go and buy stuff in a shop. Really important social functions. So these are the three functions of the family. Child and adolescent development. So an adolescent is a teenager. So this is someone between the ages of 13 and 18, and this regularly confuses or trips up students as they don't know the term adolescent. So aspects of development, emotional development. So as a child and a teenager, you are learning to deal with emotions due to puberty with teenagers from the age of 12. There are many different hormones which can then affect how they feel. It can make them feel sometimes very sad or very happy, so they need to learn how to be able to cope with this, and the family helps them. Their moral development, so parents teach them what is right and wrong. So for example, you don't steal. What's right is please and thank yous. Social development, so you learn how to behave in society. So for example, you're not running around a shop screaming. You queue after people in a shop. You don't skip the line. Intellectual development. So you learn stuff from your parents. The parents are the first place that teach you how to talk, how to count, how to read. They support the school, but they are the first people that teach you these things. Physical development. So they teach about how your body grows and changes, especially during puberty when there are big changes in the body. So they are the 5 aspects of development for children and adolescent also means the word teenager. So a right. A right is something that you are entitled to. So the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child is something you will learn about in CSP. So the NCCA, you'll also learn about the one for adults as well. So it is something you are entitled to, okay? You should be getting it. For example, access to food and water, the right to education, the right to freedom and speech, the right to shelter, the right to access medical care. So you need to be able to explain what a right is stated, explain it, and give an example for full marks. So the rights in adults and children slightly differ. So these are not an exhaustive list, and you could come up with more yourself. So children's rights are to love and understand. They have the right to grow up in the care of his or her family. So whether that's a nuclear, extended, blended or lone parent family. They have the right to receive an education, so Montessori, primary school, secondary school, and then on to 3rd level if they desire. They have the right to be protected from cruelty and neglect. And in this case, if this right is infringed, TUSLA will become involved. Adults' rights, as you can see, do differ. They have the right to work. They have the right to vote once they turn 18. They have the right to avail of consumer rights, which you learn more about in the consumer chapters. They have the right to sign legal documents, for example, when applying for a car loan or a mortgage. They have the right to marry, so it's their right. And it was only a couple of years ago now that they changed the laws surrounding marriage, which now means that women can marry each other and men can marry each other. So they're trying to be more inclusive for LGBTQIA+ rights. So, a responsibility. You need to know the difference between a right and responsibility. So in this case, you state the word responsibility and then you will explain it and then you will give an example. So responsibility is something which a person is answerable to, okay? So you are responsible for doing your homework. So it is your job to do. You are responsible for it. You are responsible for bringing in your cooking ingredients to school. And if you don't bring it in, well then you can't cook, but it also means your partner can't cook. So it's your responsibility to bring it in. So responsibilities do differ according to the stage of the life cycle. So in home ec, we will look at child, adolescent, which you now know is also a teenager, and an adult or a parent. So child's responsibilities include the responsibility to show respect for others, okay? So in school, you would be nice, you wouldn't be mean to anyone, you would be respectful to everyone, you wouldn't call them names, you wouldn't bully them. You have the right to obey parents and people or the responsibility to obey parents and people in society, and you have a responsibility to learn how to behave in society, so not run around screaming in a shop. Adolescents, so they have the responsibility to be cooperative and dependable at home. So do what their parents says, help them out at home. They have a responsibility to participate well in school. So ask questions, do your homework, do well in tests, enjoy school. They also have responsibility to be acceptable in society, okay? So not drinking and smoking because that is illegal for under 18s. The responsibility of adults and parents does differ, but in this case we're putting them together. So they have a parent, for example, has a responsibility to care for their child's needs, whether that's physical, emotional, or educational needs. They have responsibility to help their child develop life skills, okay? So, for example, how to put on socks, how to turn on a light, how to be able to make their breakfast, how to be able to zip up a zip, how to be able to tie shoelaces, life skills, teaching them how to cook and do stuff which will enable them to be effective members of society. Parents also have the responsibility to encourage a caring attitude towards other people, not just people in your family, but people in the wider community as well. So here is an example of an NCCA Sample paper. So this will be a short question as it's question 1. So it says here, in the table below, insert the family type with the correct description. So in blue is what I have filled in already. So they give you blended family, nuclear family, and extended family. They again give you a box. So you need to put those exact headings into the box. So it says family type, and that is blank, and then description. So the first one is parents and children. So if I look there, I will see that that is a nuclear family. What I would then do is I'd cross it out and I'd write down nuclear family. Now I only wrote nuclear, but in the case of exam you write the full thing. I just didn't have space here. My second bit is parents, children, grandparents, uncles, aunts and cousins. So this is an extended family. You write extended and I tick it off on the top so I know I've completed that bit. My third one is parents, guardians and children from a previous relationship. So I'm thinking of the likes of Kamala Harris and the Vice President of America. And then I'm thinking blended. So I'm going to write blended, make sure that I've written everything in. And if there was one that I didn't know, I don't have to go in order, okay? I can pick whichever one I want and then just narrow it down to what is left. So this is an example of being able to label the family types according to a description. Here is another similar question from a sample paper. It says question 1, so again a short question. Choose the correct word from the list below to complete each of the following sentences. So we have the words blended, extended, and nuclear. So family type description 1 is a family that consists or is made up of 2 parents and children. So I'm thinking back to my Nebel, so nuclear, extended, blended, and lone parent, and I'm thinking that this is nuclear because it only has 2 parents and children. So therefore I will write that down there in white and I will cross out the black nuclear up the top so I know I have it completed. Say if I didn't know what the second one is, I go down to the third one then. So when grandparents, aunt and uncles are also part of the family unit. So I'm thinking again back to my Nebel and I'm thinking this might be extended. So then I write down extended in white and I cross it out. I then go back to a family that has step-parents, step-brothers or step-sisters. Now, say if you didn't know it, you would know that there's only one more left, so it has to be blended, okay? So you're going to write down blended and then you're going to cross it out. So this is what an exam question could look like to do with the types of families. Here is another sample paper. So this is another short question. It says, between 2011 and 2016, the number of families has risen in Ireland. So then it has a nice little graphic there, an infographic saying growth in family numbers to 1,218,317. Has an arrow going upwards saying an increase in 3.3% since April 2011. So this is to do with the census in 2016 and it's a profile of families. So that all gives me information. I then go to part A where it says describe 3 different types of family structures. So I'm going to think of my Nebel, so my nuclear, extended, blended and lone parent or single parent family. So what I need to do, because it's described, I need to give a state and an explain. And if I want, I can give an example of maybe a well-known celebrity family. So in this case, I've gone for nuclear, blended and extended. So I have nuclear and I have, for example, a family that consists of 2 parents and children, followed by blended, which is a family that has step-parents, step-brothers or step-sisters. And if I want, I can give an example of a famous family. Number 3, I wrote down extended. So this is when you've grandparents, aunts, uncles, all part of the family unit. Okay, so that's when, for example, your grandmother is living in your house along with your parents and your sisters and brothers. Now, I didn't write down lone or single parent, but if I would say a single parent, for example, a mum or a dad, and child or children. And that would be what I would need to write. Now I need full sentences and I need to state and explain in order to achieve the full marks in this exam question. Next up, we have another sample paper. So this is a short question again. It says question 1, categorize each of the following needs of the family. So this means I'm going to put them into a section. It has food, love, guidance and shelter. There are then 2 categories. So we have physical needs and emotional needs. So if I start with physical needs, I'm thinking of stuff that physically help me. So the likes of food, being able to eat, nourishment, and then I put down shelter. So what this means is to have a home, a house, somewhere where you live and are safe and protected. I would then cross it out on the black ones and I write it down there in blue. Emotional needs, I'm thinking of stuff like love and guidance. So love, being able to be care, and guidance, so telling their kids like what to do, what is right, what is wrong. So norms and accepted ways of behaving in society. So there is example of categorizing the needs of the family. Another sample paper we have here. So this is a short question, as it says question 2. Give an example of one way in which the family can provide for each of the following needs. Okay, so this is the needs of the family. Emotional needs. So answer here, which I have given, is, for example, being able to give a hug and when your child is stressed about an exam. So you're providing a loving environment, a caring environment, okay? Physical needs. So for example, having a safe house, a nice warm house with plenty of food and water, somewhere that is going to physically protect the child, where they are free from harm. So this is the example of another sample paper, question and answer. So far we have looked at the family part 1 and we have looked at associated exam questions and completed full answers to obtain full marks. We are now going to look at the second part of the family unit and then associated questions. So in this section I've called it the family 2, just purely to break it down into 2 small, more manageable chapters. So our learning intentions include being able to differentiate between the roles of family members, being able to appreciate the importance of good family relationships, discussing how to improve the communication skills, and appreciating the importance of good communication and how to manage conflict within the family. So first of all, you need to be able to define and explain role, and you could give an example. So a role means you're stepping into many different shoes, okay? So a role is how you are expected to behave in life or society. So I would always get students to think about what is your role in the family. So for example, my role as a teacher is to be able to teach students and provide them with life skills that is going to prepare them for life beyond school, provide them with guidance. If you think of your role, it might be different than mine due to an age difference, so generational difference. So your role would also be different than, say, for example, your grandparents and your parents. So role is the way you're expected to behave in life. So we're going to look at the roles of the child, the teenager or adolescent, and then of the parent. So children behave in a way that is normal for their age group. As they grow into teenagers, their rules will change slightly, okay? So they will be expected to become more responsible and independent. So when you were a child, you maybe did your homework and then you came home and played after school. Whereas now that you're a teenager, you might be expected to do your homework and then you might be expected to maybe mow the lawn or walk the dog or set the table for dinner. So this is a period of change which can cause tension between parent and teenager relationships because there are hormones involved, there are changes, and sometimes the child or teenager just can't help it and they may get overly upset or anxious or angry, which can lead to tension. So as you are transitioning and turning into from a child to a teenager, your friends are going to become a bigger part of your world. So peers become stronger. So roles in the family, part 2, parents. So what a parent does is they care for the needs of their child, okay? So the physical, emotional, psychological, and educational needs of their child. They provide financially for children, which means that they can have toys, food, water, a safe home, school books, and clothes. They provide the basic needs in education, as all learning begins at home. So you first learn how to do stuff at home. So you learn how to walk, to crawl, to talk, to laugh, and what to do. It's all from your parents and whoever else is at home, like grandparents, aunts and uncles and siblings. So roles in the family, we also look at gender roles, okay? So gender refers to being male or female. Roles are learned by observing the world around us as we grow up, okay? So do you know the way, say your parents, they would have maybe said back in their time, Barbies are only for girls. So then you'd know, oh, well, I'm only supposed to play with girls' toys. If I'm a girl, so I'll only play with that. And that pink was always associated with girls because it was a more feminine colour. And blue was a more masculine colour, and boys should only play with boys' toys like tractors and diggers. This is what was taught back then. This isn't necessarily the case now. A boy can play with a Barbie and there's no problem at all with that. Likewise, a girl can play with a tractor. A girl can end up being a farmer. There is no problem with that, but you learn all these things from home. So the equal treatment of males and females is called gender equity or equality. So people are also stereotyped according to their genders. For example, all taxi drivers are male, whereas there are actually female taxi drivers. Another stereotype, all home ec teachers are female. Whilst usually that can be the case, that does not mean that there is not male home ec teachers, and there's absolutely no issue with having a male home ec teacher. Like, male home ec teachers are just as good as female home ec teachers. So that's a gender stereotype, because only women can cook and sew. No, men are able to teach those things as well. So you need to be able to state this, discuss it, and give an example. So you'll be looking for proper, good, long, detailed answers here. You need to be able to define and explain what a norm is and give an example. So for example, a norm is an acceptable way of behaving in society. So say if you meet someone new, you will shake their hand, okay? You will say hello. So this is a norm. This is what is expected for you to be doing. We're now going to look at relationships, okay? So this is how people interact. So your first relationships will occur at home. So the first people you will meet will be your parents. And then you will meet maybe siblings, aunts and uncles and their friends and grandparents. And you will, based on their relationships, you will then learn from them. If a family relationship is good, it's usually easier for you to form relationships outside of the family. Now, this isn't set in stone. Within the family, there are different types of relationships. So you could have a mother and father relationship. So this is within your nuclear family. So these relationships are close and loving. We then have parent and child relationships. So these should be affectionate and respectful and truthful. So the parents are responsible for disciplining their child, but there still should be love within the family. Relationships between siblings should be close and caring. So you shouldn't be fighting with your sisters and brothers the whole time. You should be caring for them and look after them, especially when they're sick or if there's something happening at home. So there are 3 different relationships which you will be asked to discuss. communication. So what this means is how we relate to one another, okay? So there are many different forms of communication. There is verbal and non-verbal. So verbal is me talking away now. So it can be me talking, or it can also be written. So verbal communication, surprisingly enough, only makes up of 35% of all types of communication. Most communication is actually non-verbal, okay? So this is about 65% of all communication, and is body language, facial expressions and gestures. So for example, during COVID, when we all had to wear masks, it was very hard to see what people were. When you talk, your face kind of it moves and it smiles, and that's how we're able to tell how a person is feeling when they're answering a question. It's very hard to actually understand and read people when you can't see their face, and that was something which was a barrier during COVID because we had to wear our masks. So communication, you would state, explain, and give an example. So communication is a really, really important part of a relationship. So as we said, it can be verbal or non-verbal. So verbal, written, speaking; non-verbal, your facial expressions and gestures with your hands. Listening is a skill you have to be good at as a communicator. You have to listen to people. If you don't listen, the person is going to get annoyed with you because they think that you're not interested in what they're saying. So listening is a skill that you develop. The older you get, the better you get at listening. Listening can be hard, especially if there is a lot of background noise. So it is something, it's a skill, a life skill we develop, and you learn it from your parents. So no matter how good of a communicator is, there will always be some sort of disagreement. So you're always going to have a bit of a disagreement or a small argument with someone. Everyone is guilty of it. For example, you were watching a show, someone else in the family comes in and they say, no, I want to watch something else. And then all of a sudden you start to have a big, huge argument over something really silly. So what we're going to learn about is how to prevent big, huge arguments. So causes of conflict in the family. So a lot of the time it can happen with teenagers because they're looking for more freedom. For example, like they want to stay out after school, go out with their friends, go around the shops, they want to go to the cinema, and the parents are like, no, you should be at home, you should be doing your homework and studying. And this can cause to a lot of conflict, because then the child or the teenager will respond to be like, well, I'm not a child, and the parent will like, well, you were in my house until you're 18, and then that can cause issues. So we want to try and prevent these type of things. Teenagers questioning rules. So why do I have to make my bed? Why do I have to go to bed at 10? Why do I have to eat this food? So stuff that they accepted as a child, because now they are learning that they don't have to accept it, that their peers, their friends do different things. They start to question it. So peer groups or friends becoming more important during adolescence. So you, just because maybe your friend's parent lets them go to the cinema after school and yours doesn't, and that could cause tension. So boyfriends and girlfriend relationships. So for example, wanting to be with your boyfriend all weekend instead of being at home, that can cause problems with a family because you're not home, you're not socializing with your family, you're not doing your homework maybe. External influences. So social media is a huge source of conflict. You might see stuff online which is going to cause a lot of issues. You could be on Snapchat the whole time chatting away to all your friends. Underage drinking and smoking can cause huge issues, and you should not be doing that until you're over 18 because it has serious effects on the body. Peer group. So you're thinking of Friends. So think of the TV show Friends, okay? So teenagers become more independent, okay? So once you head into secondary school, you become more independent, okay? You might have to make your own lunch. You have to do your homework. You have to figure out what books you need to bring. You might start to go out more with friends after school, meet up with them during the weekends, okay? So therefore, you're spending more time with your friends than you used to in primary school because the days are longer in secondary school. So teenagers will become more independent. This happens for a variety of reasons, okay? So they're more comfortable with people their own age. They feel like they understand them better. Peers can put pressure on individuals, so this can be positive. For example, getting you involved in the school volleyball team. Negative could be smoking and drinking. So it's really important for teenagers to feel accepted, and when they're not feeling accepted, this is when tension can arise and conflict can arise. So dealing with conflict is something that does come up in exam questions. It's not only relevant for your exam, but it is relevant for you as an individual. So parents and teenagers need to empathize with each other. So sometimes it can be really hard because the parent is older, they know it all, and the child doesn't. So you're trying to avoid confrontation, compromise, give and take. So most importantly, you should let both sides talk before you start shouting at everyone, and try not to shout, try not and raise your voice. You're trying to think of both sides of it. It's not the phrase my way or the highway. You're trying to think of both sides, come up with a compromise and see how you can fix it, the confrontation. So good communication is essential. Here is an example of an NCCA sample paper. This is question 2, which means it is a short question. So this question here says, healthy relationships help to build a strong family unit. Describe 3 ways that parents can build strong family relationships. So for example, they teach your kids about norms and rules within their home and society. A second one could be they listen to everyone's opinion in the house and they offer choices. For example, offer a variety of breakfast cereals, or offer, I don't know, like Cheerios and toast, so the child can decide what they want, so that it won't be having confrontation then first thing in the morning. Number 3, provide a home where there is love and support for all family members. So if someone feels loved and supported, there's going to be less tension in the family. Now, these are only sample answers. You can write ones which are relevant to you. But because it has the action verb describe, they're looking for full sentences. Here's an NCCA sample paper. It says part 2, what advice would you give to families to avoid conflict at breakfast? So my sample answers are to offer choice of foods for breakfast. For example, offer porridge or toast. Don't just say you're having this porridge and nothing else and you're not leaving until you eat it. If you do that, there's going to be a big, huge argument. If you compromise and offer a choice or involve the child when you're doing the shopping, then you're more likely to avoid confrontation first thing in the morning. And if there's confrontation first thing in the morning, the child is then going to go into school and they're going to get themselves in trouble because they're going to feel real angry all day. Sample answer 2, listen to both sides, okay? So come up with a compromise. E.g., if the child won't have the porridge, then give them the choice of something else for breakfast, such as fruit salad. That way, the child thinks they're winning, and the adult is actually winning as well, because the child is actually getting some nutrients into their body before they leave for school. Sample answer 3, let everyone in the family get involved in making the breakfast. So say, for example, you could actually make the breakfast the night before. So for example, overnight oats, but you can let the child choose the toppings and what kind of stuff they want to put into it. By making it the night before, it means there's more time, and it means if the child is late getting up out of bed, you're not giving out to them for not having breakfast. So it's allowing more time and more choice. But the big thing there is to listen to both sides, compromise, avoid choice, and try and reduce conflict and tension. Again, these are only my sample answers. You may come up with another answer which is perfectly right. Just be able to explain and give examples. Here is another sample paper. Explain 2 reasons conflict may occur between teenagers and elderly family members. So my first sample answer is elderly family member not allowing teenagers to give their opinion, e.g. my way or the highway. So for example, the grandparent thing is older. They think I know this and we're only doing it this way because this is how I've done it my whole life, and you're not doing it another way. And then this can cause conflict, okay? Another one is understanding or knowledge of different times. So for example, you might have a grandparent who's given out to you, why are you on that phone the whole time? And I know from my experience, I would have to say, someone given out to me, why are you on your phone the whole time? And maybe you aren't actually on social media, but you're using it actually to look up stuff to help you with your homework. But the grandparent automatically thinks phone, oh, they're messing on it, they're doing no good. Where actually phones can actually be really useful. So it's just about, and like a grandparent's not allowing the child, seeing the teenager as a child still, and not giving them the freedom which the parents are. So you're just coming up with examples. Think of your own life, and that'll help you create a better, more rounded example. So these are sample paper examples for preventing conflict between teenagers and elderly family members. Here is another sample paper. So outline one way to prevent conflict occurring with the home. So what I would say is listen to both sides, don't raise your voice, and provide a choice. So compromise. So in today's Saturday session, we looked at the family. We divided it into two sections, part 1 and part 2. We looked at exam questions and came up with sample answers for both parts. Check out the Exam Revision website at Examrevision.ie to look at the Junior Cycle Home Economics specification. We have PowerPoint presentations, which I then create video tutorials, which you can stop and pause and rewind and watch as many times as you like. There are quizzes for each chapter, and there is a student progress tracker as well. So the Exam Revision website for Home Ec, I've divided it into the 3 strands according to the Junior Cycle specification. So we have strand 1, which comprises of food, health and culinary skills. Strand 2, which is responsible family living, and that is where information pertaining to this chapter, the family, can be found. There is also strand 3, textiles and craft. Say, for example, if you were looking at a section, say, for example, on obesity and dental disease, this is what it would look like on the website. So you would have a PowerPoint presentation with video, which you can stop and rewind and watch as many times as you want, followed by exam questions pertaining to that chapter, which self-correct and give you instant results. You can also build your own exam. Thank you for watching today. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms. So we're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Make sure to check out all the other previous Junior Cycle Home Economics content. We've loads of videos on there, which you can rewind and watch as many times as you would like. So today you learned about the family, and we looked at sample questions and answers for Junior Cycle Home Economics with Amy. Thank you for listening in today, and make sure to check out the Exam Revision website for more information.